Good morning. Tanya. Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
So clear. Today is Tuesday, a beautiful day. I got up this morning, I opened the door. The sky was clear. There were clouds, in the middle was a beautiful full moon. Why is it a full moon? Because it's the middle of the month. Our calendar goes according to the moon. So it's a machlokes. It's a disagreement between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai. The Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai says that the new year for trees is the first day of the month of Shvat. Everybody agrees the month of Shvat is when the trees start. They begin getting into their summer mode. It's far away, but just they've got a long ways to go. But today, now it's when it starts. So Beis Shammai says, right, from the first day of Shvat, that's when it starts. Just like Rosh Hashanah is the first day for the whole year. And it wouldn't be strange if Rosh Hashanah was the middle of Tishrei. That's Sukkot already. And Beis Hillel says, no, Rosh Hashanah is when the moon is full. That's when the blessing from the year really takes effect, kicks in full force. What's the difference between them? They dispute about a lot of different subjects. Usually it says that Beis Hillel takes the lenient side. Beis Hillel, the halacha is, and until now, the halacha in all these disputes is like Beis Hillel, except in a few cases. It's like Beis Shammai in a few cases. But in the future, it says the halacha will be like Beis Shammai. What's the difference between them? Well, for instance, Hanukkah, we see the same thing Hanukkah. That Beis Hillel says, we go according to the way things are. On the first night, you light one candle. The second night, 2 candles. You keep growing. And Beis Shammai says, no, the first night, you light all the candles. Second night, you light only 7. Third night, only 6. We decrease each day. And they both have a precedent. Why we do it that way. Interesting, the precedent for Beis Shammai is the bulls that we offer during Sukkot. On the first day of Sukkot, we bring 13 offerings from the bulls. On the second day, only 12. On the third day, only 11, and so on, decreasing each day. So that after the 7 days of Sukkot, we do the arithmetic, you end up with exactly 70 bulls. 70 is brings a blessing for the year to come for all the 70 nations. Okay, here's Sirka. Welcome back, Sirka. Didn't see you in a while. Sirka. And Sharonelle came in very quietly today. Okay, and Zayila White. Rice. And this is Bracha, Simcha, good morning. And Sarah. Sarah, is your last name Kornblatt?
Yes. Okay. One of like 5 stars.
What?
One of like 5 stars.
One of the
There's
5 stars?
Yeah.
Sarah, I think I saw Sarah Beznos. Wasn't she just here? Okay, let's get back to the text. Now, what we've been describing yesterday is this concept of tzimtzum. Imagine, if you will, a blazing light, a tremendously powerful light, suddenly shines into your room. It's so bright you can't read, you can't do anything. It blinds you. You can imagine such a thing, right? So what would you do? You put a curtain up. But even with the curtain, the light is still very strong. So you put up a second curtain, and maybe even a third, and maybe even a fourth, until the light is tolerable. Can you imagine such a thing? Hello? In other words, you would have to block the light so that it wouldn't be so intense. Because if it's so intense, you can't function. It's too intense to function. Or consider the same idea with respect to radiation. Let's say you went to an atomic reactor and was highly radioactive. So you'd have to wear protective clothing, and there would be metal coverings to the reactor, and then rooms within rooms and doors that would say hazard, do not go in, do not open this door, do not go in order to reduce the intensity of the radioactivity, that you shouldn't become contaminated. So what we're discussing now is, you see here, the source of the energy of creation is Hashem. Hashem's source is unlimited. So therefore, it has to be blocked. It has to be stepped down. It has to be contracted, condensed, till it's at a level that's tolerable. So that in the higher levels, let's say there are 4 worlds that correspond to 4 levels of the name of God, 4 letters of the name of God. So in the first letter of the name of God is a yud, it's just a dot. So you can imagine a world that is not disconnected from God. It's a world that's still within godliness. It hasn't become created as something separate. Then on the next stage down, the energy is less, far less, incomparably less, but it's still very powerful. So on this level, we could say, oh, now we have something we could say this is a level that seems separate from God. This is a creation. It's a very holy creation. It tells us a great deal about its source, Sarah, marking the present, and Liba, yes, Liba Rivka, Liba Rivka, my boss. But where's Malka Lavana? Ariel, she'll be back when? Next week?
Not sure.
Next month? Okay. Whenever she comes back, we will feel her presence. It'll be very intense. So the light has to be stepped down again to a lower level of the world, that this is even more of a substantial creation than what we've got so far, but still it's not physical. It's we could say it has, just like the world that's still within godliness, it is a world, but it's not separate from God. So now we're coming down into levels that are separate from God, but they reflect, or they imitate, or they follow the same pattern as the world as it is in godliness. When looking from a lower level, you would say that, well, they're like potential worlds. They're still spiritual, not as spiritual as the highest world. That's godliness itself. So you have to get away from that. We have to get to a much lower level than that. And so we come to a world where it's a spiritual level that we would call it forms. Like imagine, I think in Greek philosophy, I'm not a Greek philosopher, but there is such a concept which I don't know if it was Plato who spoke about this, that every physical object has a spiritual form. You have a table in front of you, you have a chair, Why did we make a chair like this with 4 legs? Because there's the concept of a chair is something that has 4 legs and a seat that you could rest on. That's the concept. That's a spiritual idea. It's an intellectual form of the chair. You can't sit on it, but it is the essence. Essentially, it is what a chair is. That's a world of forms, still not physical. But from that world of forms, you come down into a world of physical things, which will reflect in physical terms the form that's in spiritual terms. So we have 4 distinct levels of worlds, just like we have 4 distinct levels of understanding Torah, which is called the Orchard of Torah, which we discussed at length several times. And the idea is that at each level, the intensity of the light has to be stepped down. Because if it's not stepped down, then there's no room for any forms. There's only the light. There's only the energy. You have to step down the energy until we get to a level where the energy is far, far less, and the capacity is greater. Like in electricity, we have energy and we have capacity. The capacity of a light bulb is measured in watts and amps, right? That measures how much electricity, how much energy can this particular device, light bulb, can it hold? So the light has to be stepped down, stepped down, stepped down. There's once an image where an idea of this was once put forward that, like in the first world connected with God, the energy is huge, mainly almost no blockage whatsoever. And the next level down, 1/4, we're missing 1/4 of the intensity. It's only 3/4 of the intensity. And then we move to half of the intensity. And then we move to 1/4 of the intensity until we get down to this world where it's minimal intensity. That the light is stepped down, blocked, curtained off, goes through condensers, comes under the general term of tzimtzumim, condensations, until the lowest level is really very dark by comparison to any higher level. It's dark. So therefore, this is the point that we came to yesterday, that the light is so stepped down that it's possible for a human being or to be receiving life from Hashem at the same time that he might intellectually actually say there is no God. That's like the expression they say in English terms, you bite the hand that feeds you. When you see a hand and a dog bites anything that considers a stranger, a watchdog, and a person comes to feed the dog, and the dog could bite the hand. So as a person receives life from Hashem, at the same time uses that life to do something the opposite of what Hashem wants. That's the basis, the essence of the secret of exile. That's what exile is all about. And that can only exist on this level. There's no concept of exile in a higher world. In the spiritual world, the world of forms, what we call the world of creation, where creation is pristine, is new, is fresh. You feel it's so close to godliness that you feel the godliness. So you can't possibly go against it. So now the main thing in Yiddishkeit is that we should connect ourselves to Hashem through our own decisions, through our own choice. So that we commit ourselves, not just we're being led. That's like being a robot. So therefore we have to train ourselves. In order to train ourselves, we have to have a challenge. You can't train a horse to jump. A horse isn't naturally going to jump over a barrier. Those people who are into horseback riding. You have to train the horse to do something the horse doesn't naturally want to do. So similarly, Hashem puts barriers in our way, but he teaches us how to jump over the barriers. Where does he teach us? In the Torah, in the Shulchan Aruch. But he has to create the barriers. When things are good, everything is blessed. We see Hashem's blessing. I have a home, I have a family, everybody's well, nobody's sick. I get along with my parents, my children don't fight. We see a blessing, we're very happy. But if any of these things is not there, oh, what am I going to do now? I have a problem. I have a problem. What's the problem? The problem is that the blessing is hidden. The blessing we consider kindness, a blessing, an influence from Hashem, of chesed, of kindness. But then when Hashem reveals himself in the manner of Gevurah, then the blessing gets hidden. Now let's remember, what are we talking about? What we said in the beginning, the first day of creation. The first day of creation, Hashem said, let there be light. Okay, so we have light. This is before there's even a sun. The sun and the moon, they come on the fourth day of creation. And stars. That's already day number 4. Day number 1 is just light. Right? Day number 2 is the opposite. It's not light, but it's separating the waters. So if this is chesed, the second day is gevurah, which is strength, discipline. So the same light, the source of light is the same Hashem. On the first day, he's revealing his light. His light is pouring into the quality of chesed. On the second day, the same Hashem is pouring his energy into the quality of gevurah. It's the same Hashem. It's the same energy. You have white light, and you have a glass bottle, and the bottle is yellow. So it looks like the water that you put in the bottle is yellow water. And then you have a bottle that's red, looks like the water is red. It's the same water. Just so what you see is dependent on the vessel in which the water is being held. So Hashem's light could appear like chesed, or it could appear like gevurah. So when things are going not so good, that just means that Hashem is sending you life through the vessel of gevurah. It says if a person says when things are bad, that he understands that this is from Hashem, and he blesses Hashem, and he clings to Hashem even in adversity. It says he will merit in the world to come, in the future, he will merit to perceive the Shekhinah like seeing the sun coming out of its sheath. The sword has a sheath. Hashem will take the source of light out of its covering, because the covering is gevurah, and it will perceive it, because if we accept godliness, even when it comes in negative, in what seems to be the opposite of blessing, we're really getting a much higher influence. Because after all, what's stronger, the horse or the rider? The horse is stronger? No. The horse can't stop the rider. The rider can stop the horse.
The horse can travel overnight. Or can
That's the rider loses control. But the rider really, what's greater, the taxi or the taxi driver? The car goes where the taxi driver wants it to go. So the energy of also another thing about this is that positive mitzvahs are from the side of chesed. We do something, and what we do is a good thing, but it has a form and a limit to it. Like I'm going to give $100 to a charity, but not 200. However, a negative mitzvah isn't something that I do and therefore has a limit, a shape or a form to it. It's something that I just don't do. And therefore it has no limit. Another example of the power of Gevurah is that we find by tzaddikim who from our point of view, it looks like they have great suffering. And from their point of view, they very often you'll find some tzaddik who lives in utmost poverty, very happy with his lot in life. He has no complaints, and he just devotes himself to doing good things and connecting with Torah. Because when you have that kind of an attitude, then the negativity disappears. It just disappears. Like crossing the Red Sea. Hashem says, go into the sea. We go, and if a person from a lower perspective says, I'm going to drown, then it's not going to work. If he goes into the sea like Nachshon, and he says, and he cries out to Hashem to save him, then the sea splits. And it becomes like a paradise experience. Or Avram Avinu, they threw him into a fiery furnace, and it was like, it wasn't fire, the fire didn't burn. Why not? Because he was on a level of connection to Hashem that was higher than the laws of nature. So therefore, the laws of nature didn't work. The Rebbe says about Tu B'Shvat that everybody is capable of being on such a level. He says, in Tu B'Shvat, we eat fruit. Everybody had a lot of fruit yesterday, all different kinds of fruit. The Rebbe says it's a custom to eat the fruits for which the land of Israel is praised. And this strengthens our connection with the land of Israel. It's also a custom, the Rebbe says, to eat boxer. The land of Israel is not praised for the boxer. Where do we see boxer in the Torah?
What is boxer?
What is it?
Okay. Oh.
It's shaped like this. It's hard. It's dark, like chocolate. Carob, yeah. Carob. So Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa lived about 2,000 years ago. Says he was content to live on 1 liter of boxer. That was what he ate for a week. And it says miracles were always happening to him. What's an example of a miracle? There are many stories of miracles that happened to him. He was very poor. His wife complained, you're always praying for everybody for all their needs. Maybe you'll say a prayer for us. We should have a little money. Well, he really didn't want to pray for money, but his wife nudged him. So he did. And it says a hand came out from heaven with a golden leg, solid gold, and gave it to him. So then his wife was very happy. Now they had enough to live on for the rest of their lives. But then she had a dream that all the sages were in heaven learning. Every sage had a golden table at which he was sitting. And her husband was sitting at a table that only had 3 legs instead of 4. So she felt very upset that her husband was less than all the others. And why was it missing a leg? Because they had given him this leg from all his righteousness. So she said, no, that can't be. My husband can't be less than everybody else. She says to him, you better go pray they should take back this leg. It's like, what? It's enough. I had to pray that for some blessing. Now you want they should take it back? Yes. She wouldn't let him off the hook. So what could he do? He went out and he prayed to Hashem that they should take it back. And it says a hand came out from heaven and took it back. This is called, remember at the beginning of the year, we talked about the Oral Torah. The Oral Torah is made up of two, there's like a watershed in the Oral Torah. There's the halacha part of it where it defines exactly what we're supposed to do according to the Jewish law. And then there's the inspiring stories. So that's called Agadata, like the Haggadah that we read on Pesach is a lot of these stories about going out of Egypt. So this is Agadata that they took. And it says that the second miracle was greater than the first because heaven gives things to you, but doesn't take back. He gives us blessings, like we can give back. We give back charity. We give back the blessing. We give it back to Hashem. We do Hashem shlichus for us. Another miracle is it's written about Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa. It says miracles were always happening to him. Another miracle, it's a well-known story, is that one time his daughter went to get oil to light the candle for Shabbos and discovered that they had no oil in the house. She thought they had oil in the house. It was vinegar. You can't light vinegar. She went to her father and said, what am I supposed to do? Here's Hannah. What am I supposed to do? We don't have oil. We only have vinegar. And so Hashem said, the Rabbi Hanina said, the one who says that oil can burn can also say that vinegar can burn. Light the vinegar. So she did, and it lit. They had beautiful Shabbos candles. This is Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa. So he used to eat 1 liter, 1 kav of carob, boxer a week. That was his sustenance. The Rebbe says the fact that we know this about him is connected with Tu B'Shvat, which is a blessing for the trees. Carob grows on trees. And he had a carob tree outside of his house where he lived. And he used to eat the carob from his tree. And then the Rebbe says something extraordinary. He says, this applies to all of, we can all learn from this. This is possible for every one of us. What? No, so yes, we all live with miracles. The Jewish people by nature live with miracles. Our whole existence is a miracle. Many writers acknowledge this, the miracle of the existence of the Jewish people. And the Rebbe goes on to say, if a person will honestly look at his life or her life, they will see how Hashem is shaping our life in a miraculous way the whole time. Isn't that wonderful? That's what the Rebbe said. I believe was the last time that he spoke to us on Tu B'Shvat. That was the time last time we merited to hear from the Rebbe on that day. And that was the time of the great miracles that were happening in the Gulf War. We'll talk about that more on Purim. Okay, so let's get on with this. What we're getting at is that through this stepping down of light from the source of light all the way down to this world, this is the world where it's possible for beings to exist without being totally overwhelmed, that they become robotic, that they become like robots, just doing what they have to do because there's no choice, because it's like someone's holding a pistol to your head and telling you what to do. You just do it. Okay, so therefore Hashem has to create a world in which we don't see the blessing, and therefore we can choose to do the right thing, because you can't making a choice unless you have an alternative. So he has to make a world in which good and bad are equally attractive, and even that the bad should be more than equally attractive, so that it's an accomplishment to choose to do the right thing. And when we have to make that choice, if we don't choose to do the right thing, then at that moment we make the wrong choice, we feel good about it. Because the Yetzer Hara is telling us, you better do it, you have to do it. Don't be so stupid, don't be so foolish as not to do this. But then afterwards, if you do make the right choice, if you don't make the right choice, you feel very bad about it. I really should have done that. You know, like just the other day, somebody asked me to participate in a project that he's doing on behalf of the Rebbetzin. And I said to him, I can't do it. I'm overwhelmed. I don't have time to get involved in your project. And afterwards I felt bad. I really should have, this was something for the Rebbetzin. Well, I should have tried to help him more. So you make the wrong choice. Afterwards, you feel bad about it. You make the right choice. It's hard because the inside voice say, no, you don't have time for that. You have other obligations. You can't do that. So you have to make a choice. So when can you make a choice? You can only make a choice when the darkness the light has been blocked so much that things look dark. That's Golus. So in Golus, we have tremendous opportunities to make good choices. And when Golus ends, it says we're going to miss those days because we won't have any choices anymore. It's going to be obvious. It's just going to be good. And when we do the right thing, it won't be a big accomplishment. It'll just be normal. Like when a flower grows in the spring, it's not an achievement. It's natural. Being good will just be natural. Let me take a little bit attendance. I see Talia is here. Who else? Anyone else? I didn't take their attendance. Samantha. We got you. Samantha. Sarah Milligan. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Rabbi.
And Krimko from Toronto. Used to be. Mommy is still there. Where's your name? Krimko. Okay. So therefore, this is the point we got to around page 106. Therefore, this world, the light is so great here, the bottom of page 107, so greatly is the light diminished and stepped down, diminution after diminution, that's tzimtzum after tzimtzum, until it's so contracted and blocked in a manner that this is the idea of exile, that it can give life to something and continue to give life to it, so that it doesn't bringing it out of into existence, out of nothingness, so that it remains in existence and doesn't return back to its source. Page 108 at the bottom. This is why this world is the only place that you can have klippa. Because on any higher level, it's too bright. There's no place for klippa. You know, an example, the girls used to laugh at when I was saying, well, I used to live in an apartment, that our apartment was on top of the basement where they left the garbage. So we always had cockroaches coming up into the apartment. From time to time, we would block all the doors, put tape over the door, and set off these bombs and leave the house for several hours. We'd come back and the place would be full of dead creatures. But on a normal day, we'd go out, we'd come back in the evening, and it's dark. We'd turn on the lights, and we'd see them all scurrying, running away from the lights. So, similarly, in this world, when there's a great light, there's no room for it. Hashem has to create a world with the darkness in it, so that we can have choices, so that there can be things that we should choose not to do. And that's what it says here on page 108. This is why this world and everything it contains is called the world of klippas, and the other side, because it can't be on any higher level. There's too much light there. And this is why all kol ma'aseh hazeh, all the affairs of this world are wicked, and why wicked people seem to be on top and prevail. And if you want to be great, you want to be a great person, achieve power, you have to be wicked and do wicked things. And that's how you get power, unless you go the way of goodness through wisdom. You turn the page 110. Very important. We should cover this in material here. And now it's going to talk about the clippers. There's not many places where the Tanya speaks openly about clippers. So here it says the clippers, just like there are 4 worlds of holiness, there are 4 levels of clipper. Like this, like the spider, one opposite the other. So the 4 levels of clipper, just like in holiness, the highest level is the world of godliness. So in clipper, the highest level of clipper is a world that could be possibly connected to godliness. We're going to learn about this in the next chapter. And the lower 3 levels of clipper are totally bad. Some more than others. So he says, the clippers are divided into 2 categories, one lower than the other. The lowest category is 3 completely unclean, evil clippers that contain no good whatsoever. And they're spoken about in the Torah, page 111, in the prophecy of Yechezkel. In English, his name is Ezekiel. Some of you like the Ezekiel bread. I don't know if it's really bread or whatever it is, but it's, you have to wash on it. I guess if you make a Suda, you have to wash on it. So there it describes his vision of Hashem's chariot. All this is metaphor, describing levels of godliness that were revealed to him. And it's described there as a stormy wind and a great cloud and a flaring fire. These represent 3 levels of, these are metaphors for 3 levels of unclean clippers. In our own experience, what would this be? It's like the difference between a banana peel and orange peel, which you could grind them up and use the powder as a seasoning. Yeah, you could eat it, but normally you wouldn't. We throw away the banana. We throw away the peels. Okay, but then there are peels that we can't use, like a peanut shell. So we have an inner shell on the peanut that you could eat, and the outer shell is wood. You can't eat it. So similarly, in clippers, there are the clippers that are completely bad. Got to finish things up. Too many thou shalt not this, thou shalt not that. This Torah is too restricting. It's not restricting. It's telling you don't eat the peanut shell. I love walnuts, but you can't eat the walnut shell. It'll destroy your innards. So Torah is telling us anything the Torah tells us not to do is not going to be good for us. It's so bad for us. The Torah tells us this is poison. Stay away from this. This is spiritual poison. So that when there were certain, in every generation, this takes different forms. People tried to kidnap Jewish children and deprogram them so that they won't keep Torah and mitzvahs. And one of the tricks that they do, like when they kidnap kids and put them into the Russian army during the 19th century, they used to do this, go around kidnapping children and put them in the army for 25 years. So that they would eventually, hopefully, if we beat them up enough, they'll convert and become good Christians. And one of the things they do is that the child is trained from home to wash his hands in the morning. And we're told to throw out that water. Right? So what would they do? They'd say, you live in all these superstitions. Drink this water, you'll see nothing happen. They will give the child the water to drink. Well, obviously, that has a terrible effect on them, psychologically and spiritually, not just psychologically, but spiritually. So the Torah tells us to avoid these things that are going to be very, very bad for us. So, and from these three unclean clippers, which are metaphorically described as a stormy wind, nobody wants to be out in a stormy wind, or a big fire, or a cloud, clouds the light. Mehem nishbois v'nimshoches nefoshes kol umes ha'olam. From these levels of klipa, where do the non-Jewish people get their life from? It says here, they get their life from these klippas. And this is the difference between a Jew and a non-Jew. The Jew gets his life from a godly soul. A non-Jew, the soul of a non-Jew comes through these klippas, and there are levels. There are some people, unfortunately, are just nasty murderers, bloodthirsty people. Other people are very kind. And there's a note here that a non-Jewish person is not condemned. If a non-Jewish person devotes himself to the 7 mitzvahs that are given to the nations of the world, he can achieve a level of the soul that is comparable, that is like the natural soul of the Jew. Remember, I'm using the word the natural soul of a Jew as opposed to the godly soul of the Jew. The different levels, spiritual levels. But that's very, very interesting, fascinating thing that's brought out here by the Rebbe. The Rebbe puts this in as a note in the Tanya, that, that when a non-Jewish person devotes himself to serving Hashem through the 7 mitzvahs of Noach, he can merit to become one of the righteous of the nations, and his soul will be on a level of the human vital soul of a Jewish person, and he merits the world to come. So these unclean klippas are the source of the souls of the non-Jewish nations, and then the souls of non-kosher food. Snakes and sharks and octopuses and manta rays and animals of prey, eagles and vultures, they get their life from these unclean klippas. And going down page 111 even further, in terms of vegetable growing life, there are growing life, there are things from the vegetable world that are forbidden to us. For instance, fruit that grows on a tree in the first 3 years, we're not allowed to eat it. Fruits from mixtures. Mixtures are the Torah frowns on mixtures. We don't want to mix together different kinds of seeds and grow them all in one, put the seeds down in one handful, different kinds of things. If wheat grows in a vineyard, that's called kilayim, and it's forbidden and it has to be uprooted. We're not allowed to use it. So until we uproot it, where does it get its life from? It gets its life from these 3 impure klippas. And similarly, now coming to the ultimate conclusion, when a person does a transgression, when a person does something bad, when a person steals, or a person eats something, a cheeseburger, that you're not allowed to have milk and meat together, or a person says lashon hara, or a person desires, is jealous and desires to possess something, and he'll be very conniving to get a hold of some possession that his neighbor has that he wants for himself. Well, when we do these things, we're getting life from these impure klippas at that moment, at that time. And what are we going to do about it? Oy vey. So we're going to learn about that. What do we do about it in the next chapter? Thank you very much. With this, we conclude chapter 6, very important chapter. In this most amazing holy book called the Tanya, really amazing. Anybody's name I did not call in attendance? You are?
I'm grateful.
I was here, Rabbi Pape.
Who's that?
Bina.
Olea Rappaport.
Bina.
Me too.
Bina. Wow.
Thank you.
Bina Butkin. Welcome.
Thank
Rabbi
you.
Pape, I'm Chaya.
Chaya, who's Chaya?
Chaya Menashe.
Oh, hello, Chaya. From Mexico.
Yes.
Chaya.
And
Good.
Natalia as well.
Tanya. Tanya as well. And Leah Rappaport. Leah Rappaport. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Please come on time tomorrow. We're moving on to chapter 7, a key chapter, to answer all the questions that came up in this chapter.
Thank you, Rabbi.